biggest secret being kept from humanity was that the earth is flat. Six months later, I learned of the giant trees that once inhabited our world and thought that was the biggest secret. But then I discovered there's even one greater. And of course, this might not be the last. And each breakthrough complements the last. Each breakthrough resonates with the last. And therefore, to me, we're on the right path. So, what is the next biggest secret? That the North Pole is the true location of Eden. Wow. So let's prove this. Macro. Let's start with the macro and work our way down to the micro. So if you watch my first Flat Earth Decoded vid, you will notice I was getting warm. Very warm, but not quite hot. Red hot. I mentioned how the North Star, also called Arthur, is the one immovable star in our night sky. How all the other stars revolve around it. That King Arthur and his 12 knights of the Round Table symbolize this. The Round Table is the zodiac or zoo de arc, zoo of the arch. 12 constellations, 12 knights of the Round Table. The Round Table is exactly that, a flat, round table, a flat, round earth, our earth. King Arthur is in the center, represented by a Polaris above and a pole below. The pole being the Black Mountain, also known as Mount Meru. Then we have Jesus with his 12 disciples. If you look at the picture of the Last Supper, they hide the fact that the table is actually round. See the arch in the center? It is a round table. Again, Arthur, Jesus, in the middle, with his 12 disciples revolving around him. Notice too that the 12 disciples are broken into groups of 3, representing the 4 seasons. Now we have the Chinese zodiac doing the same thing. The animals of the zoo circle the center. And we also have time with 12 hours in the day revolving around the center or pole as well. The center is the point of magnetism, the magnetic north. The 4 seasons are represented in the as below as well. 4 islands, 4 races, 4 seasons. You can see on the Hopi Flat Earth model the 4 colors for the 4 races being depicted: black, white, yellow, and red. And the 4 islands make up the land of Eden, which I will explain in a bit. Heaven is at the North Star, the true all-seeing eye of God, always lit, always open, where God sits seeing all. So the all-seeing eye is a good symbol, but usurped by the Luciferians as well. Now Gerard Mercator, geographer and cartographer, made a trip to the North Pole and wrote a letter about it to his friend John Dee, the advisor to Queen Elizabeth in the mid-1500s. Notice Dee's beard doing the downward triangle. The downward triangle is the water element. Water is a symbol of Lucifer associated with the moon. He is also in a big O. O represents Omega, again, the energy of the moon, of the left-hand pathers. In Mercator's letter, he describes the land at the North Pole. He says that it is surrounded on all sides, except for the north, with very tall mountains that reach the clouds and are free from vegetation. On the north side, the land is skirted by the ocean. Now the land is divided by 4 rivers that flow with very strong currents northward. When looking at the map, we can see that it resembles a flower, that each island is shaped like a petal, and the mountain in the middle would be the stigma. It reminds me of the hibiscus, which is very close to hyperbiscus, hyperborea. Notice how the petals are lighter going towards the center and resemble water entering a whirlpool at the pole. See, and the stigma is the mountain, Mount Meru. So the stigma of the hibiscus is the obelisk and represents the male portion, and the petals would represent the female. It reminds me of the bull's eye symbol. Now, isn't that an interesting name? How in the world does it resemble a bull's eye? It doesn't. But it is a clever way to disguise that it has a Taurus in the middle, because Taurus is the bull constellation. Taurus, Taurus, is how the energy flows in our enclosed system. The water gets drawn to the center, to the magnetic tower, Black Mountain, and drawn into a whirlpool that leads to the center of the earth. It keeps going and eventually gets drawn back out at the perimeter or ice ring, otherwise known as Antarctica. Taurus would be the bull, the male, and Lotus would be the flower or the female. They also use the lily and the rose in their symbolism and is reflected on the tarot cards. The lily would be the tower or mountain, and the rose would be the islands surrounding it. Interesting that Johnny Depp named his daughter Lily Rose. Was he aware of this connection? And as a side note, notice the 22 on her friend's shirt. 22 is Christ's number in the tarot deck. It is the Fool card and shows Christ's completed journey in this world. The Masons usurp this good number as well. Mason equals 22 in numerology. Micro. And we can't forget that the heart, which is an anagram for earth, has 4 chambers and looks an awful lot like Eden as well. Salt water flows into the heart of the earth, just as blood flows into the heart of our bodies. If a human has experienced loss of blood and no blood is available for a transfusion, what do hospitals use instead? Salt water. As above, so below. Notice they even color the heart red and blue, although the right should be red and the left blue. Just like on Jesus' robe, it's all about the positive and negative charge and the magnetic pole at the center. Right red and positive, left blue and negative. Remember too that the Masons worship the east, south, and west and consider the north evil because they know that the north is the throne of God. Throne is an anagram for north, and it's phonetically similar to the Norse, as in the people of the north. And who is known as the King of the North? Jesus, of course. Now we know Santa resides at the North Pole, and Santa is how they usurp Jesus. Santa, of course, is an anagram of Satan. Look, he's even doing the shh of Horus. The Christmas tree, as we know it, has been usurped as well, and is really symbolic of the tree of life, a good symbol. Hyperborea means hyper, beyond, and borea, north wind. And then we have the aurora borealis, which means aurora, lights, and borealis, northern. So beyond north wind and lights of the north. Notice aurora borealis is very similar to Ouroboros, and Ouro means ring, and Boros, northern, so northern ring. The northern ring would be the mountains that encircle the North Pole. Notice here it is encircling the tree of life, or the world tree, found in the Garden of Eden at the North Pole. I always thought it represented the ice wall known as Antarctica, like they show in the Game of Thrones. However, now I think this too is a diversion. For the ones awake, they try to get us to focus on the rim of our world, when in fact, the special place is in the center. I mentioned in my original Flat Earth Decoded vid that Edinburgh in Scotland means Eden home. So home of Eden. And Scotland was on the outer border of the North Pole lands. If we look at Edinburgh, we can see how green and lush it is, like a garden. And is very similar to the modern green and lush environment nicknamed the Paradise Isles, known as Hawaii. Now, before the fall of Adam and Eve, living in the Garden of Eden was considered the Golden Age, with perpetual spring. This was due to the path of the sun and moon being tighter then. Over the years, it has slowly widened to where it is now, between the Tropic of Cancer in the north and the Tropic of Capricorn in the south. When the sun is closest to the Tropic of Cancer, the countries above the equator are in summer, and the ones below the equator feel summer as winter. When the sun is on its path at the Tropic of Capricorn, the opposite is true. Above the equator, it is considered winter, and below would feel like summer. So when the sun first circuited the Earth's plane, it had a much tighter path and must have traveled a path nearer to the Tropic of Cancer throughout the year to cause eternal spring in the garden. Now, Eden goes by other names as well. Mount Meru, Moriah, Mount Olympus for the Greeks, and Sumeru. Remember that Sumeria is supposed to be the first recorded civilization. So could Sumeru be connected to Sumeria? I would say absolutely. Then we have Thrace, which is a civilization supposedly 2,000 years older than Sumeria. That is another name for Eden. And Thule. Notice how Hitler was a part of the Thule society and was heavily into the occulted knowledge. Doesn't it appear they are worshiping the center here, or taking energy from it for their god? I don't get a good vibe from this picture. It's not coming in very clear either. The Nazis supposedly went to Antarctica and set up a base there called Neuschwabenland. Nearby is an island named Thule. Now, is this to divert our attention from the real location of Thule, being at the North Pole? Notice too that Antarctica means opposite of the Arctic. Ant as in anti. So if the Arctic is the seat of Christ, that would make the Antarctic the seat of the Antichrist. So the rim would be as far away from God as you can go on the earth plane. Now there is speculation also that Atlantis, the lost civilization, was really Eden as well. The description of Atlantis, having rings of land with water between them, leading to a central city, is very similar to the description of the lands at the North Pole from Mercator's notes. The most common location given for the possible location of Atlantis is in the Atlantic Ocean, just north of the coast of Africa. However, if we step back and look at the shape of the continents, the Americas do look like they could fit like a puzzle into the continents of Europe and Africa. So that would leave no room for Atlantis to be in between them. But if Atlantis was actually at the North Pole, that would make perfect sense. I think the land masses possibly drifted outwards with the widening path of the sun, and they broke apart. Now we have a hidden connection to Atlantis with the Mormons. First, if we look at the word Mormon, we have an anagram for Mr. Moon. And Mr. Moon would be Lucifer. Lucifer is represented by the moon and also Venus. The Mormons are also known as the Church of Latter-day Saints. Saints is a perfect anagram for Atlantis. You can't make this stuff up. And we're not done. Latter day is phonetically similar to latter day, as in the ladder that goes to heaven, otherwise known as the stairway to heaven, or Jacob's ladder. So it appears they are hiding in plain sight the secrets of our world. Here's another example, Magic Mountain at Disneyland. Remember that M is a 3 on its side, so MM equals 33. The Magic Mountain would be the magnetic mountain, the obelisk at the center of the park. Mount Meru, Magic Mountain. We learned from Mercator's letter that the Magic Mountain is 33 miles in circumference. Now the sun and the moon are also 33 miles in circumference. How amazing is that? Do you think the Masons are hiding info from us? The United Nations use the flat earth map as their symbol. And what is the number in the middle? 33, of course. Also notice that UN, the abbreviation, or UN, the abbreviation for the United Nations, is an ancient name for Lucifer. Un is also a prefix that means against or anti. So we have against Christ or anti-Christ. They worship the Un, the Antichrist, and are trying to usurp God's throne. Back to Walt's world, we find that Walt Disney was a 33rd degree Mason, and Disneyland is home to Club 33. Notice the Merovingian fleur-de-lis at the top. Yes, Mero, from Merovingian, as in Mount Meru, Meru. Now the land surrounding Mount Meru is lush like a garden, and in Norse mythology we have Asgard and Midgard. Asgard is a name for the home of the gods, or heaven, and is a garden above. Asgard, as garden. Midgard is the name for earth. Midgard, or middle garden, the garden below, or Eden. In Norse mythology, there are 9 realms, but only 2, Asgard and Midgard, have garden in their names. And in the garden of Midgard, we had giant trees. They depict these giant trees in film, like in Avatar. Here the main giant tree, or the world tree, Yggdrasil, the tree of life, is shown being threatened. They show a different version of it in Game of Thrones. Notice the tree is in the far north. Now the ocean that surrounds and flows into the garden is called Oceania. It flows into the earth where there is subterranean land. The land is divided into the place of righteous and the place of wicked. These are places where souls go waiting for judgment, otherwise known as purgatory. The Arcturian Gulf divides them and keeps them separated. Back to Eden, we see that the main river that flows into the center is called Eridanus. This river is lined by amber-bearing poplar trees. Now, in the recent series called Westworld, Dolores remarks, "They say great beasts once roamed this world, as big as mountains, yet all that's left of them is bone and amber." Isn't that a strange thing to say? Bone and amber? Paradise is lined with amber-bearing poplar trees, again hiding the truth in plain sight. And the water of the Eridanus is inhabited by flocks of white swans. Now swans are also used in symbolism to represent twos. White swans represent Christ, and black swans, Lucifer. 222 is a master number. 3 black swans, 222, released in a lake for Diana's funeral. Now Atlantis might not have been destroyed by the Great Flood. Maybe that is part of the deception as well. If Atlantis really is Eden, then it is the first continent. And the first continent is the sacred and imperishable land, the most mysterious of the 7 continents, and which it didn't share the same fate as the other continents because its destiny is to last from beginning to end, from Alpha to Omega. It was the cradle of the first man and will be the dwelling of the last divine mortal. It is the place where New Jerusalem will descend. Jerus means truth, and Salem means peace. So is the true Jerusalem in the desert? Or is that another diversion, just like Atlantis, just like Thule, to keep us from looking where the real throne of God is, the real Jerusalem at the North Pole? Not only is Eden not destroyed by the Great Flood, but it is divinely protected. Eden is the garden right below the throne of God. When Adam and Eve were cast out, cherubim were put to guard Eden and the gateway to heaven. These cherubim are represented by the eagle, ox, man, and lion, which is represented in the tarot cards as well on the world card. And remember how Arthur was represented in the heavens, in the constellation with Arthur as the pole star. Well, we have an as below for Arthur as well. He made a trip to the north. In 1364 AD, 8 people came to the king's court in Norway, saying they came for the lands of the North Pole. One, a priest, mentioned that King Arthur sailed there May 3rd of 531 AD with 12 ships. 5 of the 12 were smashed against rocks and were shipwrecked, but the other 7 made it there. Arthur peopled the northlands of Scotland and Iceland. Arthur's journey is written about in the Gestae Arthuria. A few centuries later, Catherine II of Russia heard about the land of the north by the Masons. She organized 2 expeditions, the first of which sailed on May 4th, 1764, to find the elixir of life. From what she was told, the people of Hyperborea lived to be 1,000 years old. I would say that is a hibiscus flower on her dress. And what did we say about the hibiscus flower? What it represented? Well, Eden, of course. If we look to the Bible, we will recall that Adam, through Noah, lived expansive lifespans as well. Adam lived to 930 years old. Methuselah, 969 years. And Noah, 950 years old. In fact, the first 10 generations of Adam lived for almost 1,000 years each. More evidence that Hyperborea could be Eden. And don't forget Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark is Noah's Ark, A-R-C, as in arch, as in the zoo in the sky. Again, the constellations that encircle our earth, the zodiac, zodiac. And King Arthur's son was named Noe, which is the Welsh version of Noah. So have I opened your eyes to the possibility that the North Pole is the most special place above all in our world? That if it is the place of Eden, then the Bible is true? That Atlantis is a real place? That it is protected? That God is just above it, seated on his throne, the true all-seeing eye, watching over his people? That we really are on a world stage, playing out our parts. That in the end, everything will be okay. It is divinely controlled. Lucifer is only given a finite amount of time to do as he will in our world due to his fall, along with Adam and Eve's. We are at a time of great revealing. For those with eyes to see will see. Corinthians 3:16-17. Do you not know that you are a temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? If any man destroys the temple of God, God will destroy him, for the temple of God is holy, and that is what you are. The temple is within us, the heart. Heart, earth, as above, so below. In Jesus' name.